Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. I have a 10-minute painting for you, which is all about completing a painting in a short amount of time to help boost your confidence, give you the opportunity to practice a little more frequently. And it's also a good building block, working for shorter amounts of time so that you can then build up to more complex pieces that take longer, but you can approach them in smaller chunks at a time. So that's what my 10-minute watercolor series is all about. I will show you really quick what I painted today. It's just this little bee, which is kind of hard to see probably because it's so small, but sometimes when you don't pre-plan what you're going to paint, which I never do for the 10-minute watercolors, I never do an underdrawing, I just go for it. So sometimes that happens, but before I actually get into that video, I did want to mention my website, CoreyFrankCreates.com. It's the best way to get in touch with me and learn more about what I do. You can also sign up for my weekly email newsletter there and get my free no-brainer watercolor supplies buying guide. It's just a one-page PDF with links to different products I would recommend based on a variety of prices and budget points. So that's just really helpful, especially when you're first getting started, to have an idea of what supplies you could start out with. I also have my online art shop on there, as well as my online courses. So when you're ready to take a deeper dive into watercolor, you are welcome to check those out. And that is all on my website, CoreyFrankCreates.com. Alrighty, without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this video. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my size 12 round brush here. And you can see there are a lot of bristles. It's one of the brushes I use the most because of that, but it also still comes to a fine point, so I can paint some details. So I have that. I have 140-pound cold press watercolor paper here. Cut it down from a 9 by 12 inch sheet, so it's 5 by 7 inches in size. And I pre-wet my palette with my dropper, so I'm all set to go. And I'm gonna start my 10-minute timer now. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slightly wet my paper. Whoops, there's a little bit of soap in there. Whoopsie. That happens sometimes. Okay, I don't want it to be super wet because I do want to be able to not have it spread as far, but I want it damp so that I do get a little bit of that wet into wet technique. So I am going into my cadmium yellow here, picking up quite a bit, and then I'm just gonna paint the first stripe. So I definitely want some of my edges to spread, but not too much. So hence why I didn't lay down as thick of a layer of water. And now, instead of using pure black, which I could, I'm gonna use my Payne's Gray instead. I think it's a little bit of a richer color. And now I'm gonna lay in the main part of the body here. I got it really nice and dark. I want that paint to be as opaque as I can get it. Leaving some space for where the wings go. And this has continued to spread, so just be aware that when you use wet into wet, the paint you lay down is gonna spread much further than where you initially laid it. Which is partially what I wanted. I want it to have that fuzzy look. It maybe went a little further than I was intending, but that's okay. I will be able to work with that still. I'm gonna go into my sepia brown now because there's a little bit of kind of some sepia tones in the body. So I'm just gonna kind of lightly dab those in. The paper is starting to dry now. You can see the paint is not spreading as much, and that's just fine because I'm starting to get into slightly more detailed areas, and I would prefer to not have it be spreading all over the place. So that worked out exactly how it needed to. Depending on where you're at, your paper may take a little longer to dry. I live in a pretty dry climate, so it doesn't take long for the paper to dry. That paper soaks it up pretty quickly. Okay, now I'm gonna go back into my cadmium yellow. And we're gonna get another thing of it, another line of yellow for kind of the final part of this bee. See how far that original yellow spread? It's pretty amazing how, that's just how watercolor behaves. It wants to go wherever a wet surface is or wherever there is water. Okay, I'm gonna go back in. I want some of my raw sienna here and see though how it created that perfect kind of fuzzy effect right on the edge. It might be a little hard to see just because this is a little bit of a smaller painting, but it really, that is why I wanted a little bit of that wet into wet technique, is to create that naturally fuzzy edge. And it did it quite well. Okay, I'm actually going to switch to a smaller brush now. I've got my size 2 round. You can see it comes to a nice fine point. If camera will focus on it. There you go. Kind of, you get the idea. It's much smaller, obviously. Going to my Payne's Gray, and I'm just gonna kind of go in here. Just kind of lightly dab in. For these 10-minute paintings, you really don't have a ton of time to get really detailed with stuff. I only have about, well, I have a little less than 6 minutes left, and the wings are probably gonna be the part that require the most attention to detail, so I want to make sure I leave some time for that. And draw my little antenna here on both sides. And I'm gonna wait for that little part to dry just because I want to create the sort of lines for where the eyes are. All right, I'm gonna start drawing the wings. And again, I'm not going to be super exact with every single line. And I realized the paint color would make a lot more sense to use the sepia brown. So I'm switching to that. There's a lot of kind of those tones in the wings where the lines are. So, staying right on the tip. Again, I'm not paying close attention to the way the exact pattern of the lines in the wings are, because that would just take too long. This is, but you get the idea. This is just having fun with it. I want to have a little bit of kind of some interesting rainbow colors in here. So I'm gonna add just light hints of a couple different colors. Oops, that was too much. You can see how much darker it was. So if you get your color a little too dark, you can always rinse your brush really well, blot the excess water off on your towel, which you can see I'm doing over here, and then go in, which would have made a little more sense if I had actually done that first rather than drawing those lines, because I kind of painted over them and they blended with the paint. So on the next wing, I will be smarter and do that first. So let's get a little bit of Viridian green. Again, too dark, so I'm gonna really lighten it up. I've got only 3 minutes left, so I'm really trying to go as quickly as I can. I did not fill the page as large as I could have with the bee. I kind of kept it a little concentrated to a smaller area. So I think I may just try and do a little bit of a background, which will probably take me over the 10 minutes. And that's okay. The idea is to try and get as much as you can done in a short amount of time, to build that confidence, to really be practicing, because the more you paint, the better you get at it each time. All right, so now I'm gonna go back in with the sepia brown and paint some of those wing lines here. Again, being very loose with it, not worrying about it being really detailed. This is still a little wet, so my lines aren't going to be as fine as they could be. That's okay though, I'm running out of time. You can still essentially see what this is. And if I had a little more time, I would even go and add, I didn't leave room for like white highlights in the wings. I should have, but I was rushing a little bit because now I'm down to less than 2 minutes. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna move back to my size 12 round brush. I just wanna put some loose type of florals in here. Oh, by the way, the reference image for this little painting here is linked in the description. It's from unsplash.com. They have royalty-free images on there, which is really wonderful, but I always like to give the photographer or the artist credit if possible. I think that's the courteous thing to do. So you can go check that out, see what I was looking at. And yep, I've got 1 minute here, so let's just grab some green, maybe a little more. I'm creating like a light wash around the bee to try and like push it forward. Just a little bit, paint over some of that yellow. Actually, it would help if I made it even darker, I think. There we go. You want to create some nice contrast to really bump things forward. So if ever one of your pieces is looking just a little blah, it could be that you just don't have enough contrast between light and dark. Okay. So this is gonna be my time right about here. I've got 10 seconds left. So that right there was 10 minutes, essentially. I'm gonna stop my timer before it makes a sound. So that was at the 2-second mark. I'm gonna work just a couple more minutes further because I wanna try and fill a little more of this paper just to make it look a little more complete. So you are welcome to do the same, or if you feel like you're at a good stopping point, that works too. Whatever floats your boat. That's a great thing about these quick paintings is you can kind of decide where your stopping point is. And if you don't have enough time or are just feeling like, nope, I've worked enough today, perfect, go ahead and stop. No need to keep going. But if you think, oh yeah, I could totally keep going and I have some ideas for what I could add, that is great. You know, work is how inspiration kind of flows wherever it takes you. All right. And I don't want to go too much over the time because if I say it's going to be a 10-minute painting, I want to try and stick somewhat to that. All right, a little bit of ultramarine blue. By the way, the lovely green I was using, I started with one that I'd kind of pre-mixed and thought, no, I wanted to have a little more of a darker tone. So I was using Hooker's Green. That's just the name of the paint. And I used dioxazine purple for those purple flowers. And just spread a little here. Maybe I'll flick some paint here. I'm just tapping the excess water and paint off. Right there. I'll do a little more of that. I really love making something look whimsical, and I think the water droplets do that pretty nicely. You want a decent amount of water and pigment in your brush if you're gonna do that. And you can either do it like I'm doing right here, or you can like flick it across your finger. That makes a little bit finer of a splatter. Okay. Enough with that. I'm gonna go ahead and sign this, and that works really well with a smaller detail brush. So I'm back to my size 2. I'm gonna just, whoops. You want enough water in your brush so you can easily stroke the bristles across the page, but you don't want so much that you can't create the detail. all about balance. That really is what watercolor is all about. And I realized that as I'm looking at this, actually, there's very similar value throughout, except maybe like right here, it's really dark and it helps push that forward. But a lot of this is kind of in a mid-tone area. So something that I might do if I had the time and wanted to keep working is maybe grab some white ink. I'll just pull it out of my drawer since it's right here. So I do like this Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. I just like scoop a little bit out. You can see it's like pretty solid. So I'll scoop a little out, put it in a dish, add a tiny bit of water, not too much, but enough to help it spread more easily. And then I could go in and add some highlights, maybe lighten up some of these areas. Definitely the highlights on the wings I think would be really helpful to make the insect stand out a little more. But for the most part, again, in 10 minutes, consider that you got something done in a short amount of time and at least it's recognizable. That is the goal. Oh, I did remember I was gonna kind of paint the lines for those eyes, so I am gonna do that really quick. I just wanna give our little guy a little character here. Just a little bit. Some of those lines. There we go. All right, so this is technically, like this right now is 15 minutes, which definitely not 10, but like I could have stopped at that 10-minute point and it would have been fine. So I'm still gonna keep it part of my 10-minute series, and there you have it, a little bee on some flowers in a field in a short amount of time. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that and found it helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. Until my next one, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. God bless, and I will see you soon.